Supi, this is GyaruGyaru. My name is Autumn. Today I'm going to be going over the last 3 shows that I watched for the Spring 2016 anime season, and then I'm going to be crowning one of those 3 as the anime of the season. I'm so glad that I'm finally going to be done talking about this season because it really was not a very good season. It was very hard to get through. If you watched my 2 other videos, you would already know how I felt about most of the other shows, and I actually went back and did some math after I finished recording my last video, and after putting all of my scores together and getting an average of everything that I watched, including the 7 shows that I dropped, this season came out to be a 4.8 out of 10 for the entire season, which is pretty dismal. That said, there was a few shows that I really did enjoy, like I said, Flying Witch, Tanaka-kun, and there's some other shows that I haven't talked about yet. 2 of the shows that I'm going to talk about I really, really like, whereas one, I didn't like it as much as I think I could have. And I'm going to talk about that one first. That one is Re:Zero. So this is a story about a guy who, after going shopping, finds himself in a world that he has never been in before. And after a few events happen, he finds himself getting killed and waking up again in this same world. But everything is repeating itself. Kind of like a Groundhog Day type thing. So it's a little bit of a premise that we've seen before with other shows where things are like, you know, main character gets stuck in a video game or put in a different world. That, you know, is not something that's super new. However, this anime goes about things very differently because it isn't afraid to show not just the main character but everyone else in the show getting killed. And that's because the main character can die and come back, which is a pretty unique plot device. It's not quite time travel, it's more like dimension traveling, because if it was time travel, he would be able to run into himself at some point, which, as far as we know, is not possible, because none of the events that he sees ever happen the same way again. So it's not quite like Groundhog Day. So that's one thing that I really liked about the show. It's a very unique plot device that it has. I also liked that it focuses so much on the characters and why he cares about them so much, despite not getting a lot of time with each of them. Especially because when he's looking at Amelia, when she's looking at him, she's only spent a little bit of time with him because this is the first time she's met him. However, if he's died 4 or 5 times already, he's met her 4 or 5 times already. He's spent a lot more time with her than she has with him. So it makes a very different type of dynamic than you see in a lot of shows. The closest thing that I can think of to that is Homura in the Madoka Magica series. How she cares for all of the other girls because she has seen them die so many times. So those are the 2 things that I really like about the show. However, because of that plot device, it makes the progression of the series very, very slow. Because if the progression is faster, they're not going to be able to show him dying and being able to build those characters the way that they are. That makes it a little bit hard, for me at least, to feel like I'm watching this for a reason. It makes me feel a little bit like I could just skip a few episodes, and that way I could actually see the whole plot play out by only watching a few of the actual episodes of the show. Which isn't something that I would really ever want to do, but if someone doesn't want to deal with filler, then that is something that they could do with this show, I think, which is a pretty big drawback. Yes, you wouldn't be getting the same experience out of it, but you would still get the same plot out of the show. It's also hard for, I think, the viewer to get really excited for the protagonist, Subaru, because he doesn't really know what he's fighting against. And because he doesn't really know what he's fighting against, it makes it hard for us to get behind him. I know that I'm obviously supposed to be on his side, but if I don't know who I'm fighting with him, it's hard for me to say, go into that battle, get that thing done. It just makes it a little bit harder to care about, in my opinion. Then the last thing about this show that kind of really, really made it hard to get super into was the fact that it had the worst OP of the season. If not one of the worst OPs that I've seen in a really long time. Now, the OP for Kotetsujo was pretty bad, but this one is just a whole new level. It has a horrible pacing to the show, to the opening sequence, and it just makes it very hard to get hyped up, which is kind of the point of an OP for an action show. If you can't get hyped by something that was made to get you hyped, that says a little bit about the show as is. So all in all, I gave this show a 6 out of 10, despite it being one of the 3 shows that I'm putting up for Anime of the Season. And I'm putting it up for Anime of the Season because I think a lot of people will like it despite those things. And I think there is a reason to watch this show because that unique plot device is very, very new. You don't see that very often. At least I don't. So then the next show that I have up for Anime of the Season is Kuromukuro. Now this is one that I'm pretty sure a lot of people aren't watching, haven't even heard of, that type of thing. It's, I'll be honest, I started watching it because I liked the outfits that I saw the characters wearing on one of the promotional posters. I didn't know anything about it going into it, and I was really pleasantly surprised, obviously, if I'm putting it up for Anime of the Season. It has a really great balance of humor and action, and there's really no wasted time from the start of the series to, I believe, episode 14 is what we're on now. And that's the other thing that I want to talk about after I mention the last anime that I'm going to be putting up, is the fact that 2 of these are longer series, and 1 is a shorter one. There's also some really good dynamics between the characters in Kuromukuro. Like I mentioned, the really good dynamics in Re:Zero. If you actually have characters that are interacting well with each other, you're going to feel more like you know them. And these are some shows that do that really, really well, I feel. Kenosuke is a character that, for some reason, was trapped inside of a black cube for hundreds of years and has now awoken. And his mission in life before he was trapped in that cube was to protect the princess. He was a samurai, and now that he's awoken, the world has changed quite a bit. There's robots from space that are attacking planet Earth, and he can pilot one of the robots that can be used to stop the ones from space. So there's a lot going on that is, like I said about Re:Zero, very unique to this show. He's a very, very strong character that's going to be piloting a giant robot, and so you would think that he is the main character. However, the main character is actually a very small, average high school girl. And the really cool thing about her is she fills the trope that a lot of male main characters have, where they just go in and they don't have any skill whatsoever. They're very run-of-the-mill. They're just like anybody else, but they can do incredible things when put into pressure. It's a very, very cool thing to see a female character be put into this situation, rather than have it be all about Kenosuke and then her be an add-on. I would really say that the 2 of them are very, very strong main characters, because of the way that they interact with each other. And the way that they interact with each other makes the show so good. As well as all the other characters that interact with Kenosuke. Because he doesn't really understand things. Like, there's a few scenes where he's trying to use a cell phone, and he starts screaming into it, not understanding that there's another person on the other side, or how that exists. How does that work? Which is funny, because he can pilot a giant robot and not question that, but he doesn't really understand how televisions and phones work. Just kind of a funny thing, I thought. One other thing that's really nice about it is there's a lot of mystery, because obviously you're trying to figure out what's going on with Kenosuke, and then you have to figure out why these robots are attacking from space. And then you start to learn about everyone's families and things like that. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of different things going on in this show at the same time, and it really does keep you interested. It's never just, oh, they're fighting the enemy, now the enemy is dead, and the battle is over, and now we'll be in a time of peace. There's other things that are going on at all times, which I really like. The scenes also feel very dire, without feeling over the top. You can get into it without feeling like you have to really stretch yourself to believe what's happening. And the last thing about it is the OP is decent at best, which, like I mentioned about ReZero, can make or break something, because if you can't get excited about the show as soon as the show is starting, you're probably not going to be very excited for most of the episode. So it's decent, but it's forgettable. And the last show that I'm going to be talking about is Boku no Hero Academia. It's a very typical shonen anime. I almost feel kind of weird putting it on to this list, because in my head I don't think of shonen anime as something that can be great. Yeah, I love Naruto. It's one of the first shows that I started watching when I was a kid, but I don't think anyone ever anywhere would say that Naruto is something that is deserving of anime of the season or anime of the year. However, when I was watching Boku no Hero, I found that I cared about the characters a lot more than I did with other shonen series. The characters are really, really likable, and I think that's because they make them a little bit more human. All of their powers are either very strong or very weak, and the ones that are very strong seem to have at least one very large flaw. And because of this, it makes it very easy for the viewer to say, oh, they're a little bit more human. Whereas when you're watching other shonen series, it's, everybody is super big, they're strong, they don't have anything wrong with them, or they're very weak. There's no middle ground, it feels. And that's why I like Boku no Hero a little bit more. It just feels more believable. And I think I've said that about 2 of the 3 shows that I've been talking about in this video, and that should kind of give you a clue about what I liked a little bit more this season. The training arc in Boku no Hero is actually really, really nice. It's, I believe, 2 or 3 episodes at the most, and it really does kind of show you how much getting stronger and preparing to go to school is for Midoriyama. And that's just something that you really don't see unless it's something that's very stretched out, or something that's in a longer anime series, which is why I really, really enjoyed seeing it in this show. And then the last thing, again, I want to talk about the opening animation. It's really good. It's very, very good, and it's actually, I think, one of my favorite things that have come out this season. It almost rivals Erased's opening animation, in my opinion. It really does get you into the mood of the show. As soon as that opening starts, you're ready to go, you're ready to see them fight, you're ready to see them start their journey into becoming superheroes. And that really does make a huge difference. So, 2 of the shows that I talked about just now, I gave an 8 out of 10, and 1 I gave a 6 out of 10. So, just based on the numerical value, we're kind of going to throw Re:Zero off the table right now. And then it comes down to Kuromukuro and Boku no Hero. With Kuromukuro, it's on, like I said, I think episode 14 at the time of filming this. 13 or 14. Out of 26 episodes. So I don't know how it's going to end. Whereas Boku no Hero has ended and is getting a 2nd season because it's a longer running manga. So for both of these, they are obviously not finished stories. So it's a little bit more even to compare the two than if I were to compare something like Flying Witch, which is a finished story, to Kuromukuro, something that isn't done. I think between the two, I would rather give Kuromukuro Anime of the Season due to the fact that it isn't a shonen anime. It doesn't fit into that typical trope that a lot of shonen anime falls into. And the fact that it has that strong female lead really does push it a little bit farther in my opinion. However, that is just my opinion, and if you believe that I'm wrong, or you really liked Re:Zero, or you liked Mayoiga more, or any of the other shows that I've talked about, or even something that I didn't watch this season, please tell me in the comments, because I really do want to know what other people think of these shows, especially because this season, in my opinion, was very lackluster. And I want to know why other people enjoyed things that they enjoyed this season, because there was a lot that I didn't get into. So, with that, I'm going to leave it to you. Give me a like and a subscribe, comment on there, and as always, be how you want to be. See ya!